Hi everyone. Today, I'd like to take you 50,000 kilometers away from Europe in French Polynesia to discuss the social-political mechanism behind the containment of the waste produced during the nuclear test conducted in the Pacific Ocean by France. But before going that far away, you need few theoretical intakes first. Following Fukushima's accident, nuclear geography is undergoing a remarkable revival. Past research has investigated the production of zones by nuclear industries. It postulates that the atomic complex could not exist without constantly creating borders to prevent unauthorized incursions and to contain the dissemination of radioactive elements. However, while these works have looked into the production of limits to manage nuclear sites, this approach has not been applied to the constant flow of matters that sustain the atomic complex. Yet, nuclear sites are social metabolism, produced through socially mediated streams of energy, materials, waste, and humans, without which the nuclear social systems could not operate. Matters flowing into or away from nuclear sites are spatially constrained by a categorization process. These categorizations inform bodies of norms, administrative dispositions, and legal texts that regulate their social lives and their social-spatial arrangements. They determine how they should be handled, who's authorized to handle them, through which canal they can move, and where they can go. Circulations of matter within the atomic complex and their transgression outside of its border depend on the categorization of their nuclearity. Gabriel Hecht's concept of nuclearity refers to the action of labeling a material, a technology, or an action as part of the nuclear realm. Hecht showed that the nuclearity of matters is not defined by its actual radioactivity, but is socially produced through constant negotiations and confrontations between actors depending on their particular interests and social representations. Today, we're facing growing circulations of low-level radioactive materials coming from the upscaling of nuclear medicines or the decommissioning of nuclear power plants. Thus, it appears necessary to understand the mechanism permitting their circulation or imposing their confinement. To do so, we offer to focus on the case of the waste produced by the infrastructure set up on Howe Island for the French nuclear test in the Pacific. From 1966 to 1996, France conducted 193 nuclear blasts in Polynesia on the islands of Morurora and Fangataufa. This test relied on a support base situated in the atoll of Howe. Howe hosted a military airport, caserns for over 1,000 men, industrial warehouses, decontamination facilities for boats and planes exposed to radiations, facilities responsible for assembling the nuclear bombs, and laboratories treating radioactive samples. In this paper, we propose to focus on the management of two types of waste produced by the decommissioning of these infrastructures: gravels and polluted soils. Drawing from a political industrial ecology framework, this research is built on the desk study of grey literature, the systematic analysis of Polynesian newspapers' databases, and 17 semi-structured interviews conducted in April 2019. Result shows that even if these matters are not radioactive anymore, their symbolic nuclearity constrained their circulation and forced measures of containment. Waste produced by the deconstruction of Howe Base, from its opening in 1966 to its closure in the early 2000s, were either scavenged by inhabitants, immersed in the ocean, or buried under the island. While only few valuable metals were sold and shipped away from the atoll, waste piled up in the island. Following the military base closure, poverty has skyrocketed in Howe. Thus, local and national authorities launched in 2008 a reconversion project based on the development of tourism, copra and vanilla production, and administrative functions. Furthermore, attracted by its central location in the Pacific region and by the presence of transportation facilities Chinese investors developed a large-scale fish farm project in the atoll. Rehabilitation works were engaged 1 year later to restore the fields still hosting ruins or waste of the nuclear test era, to depollute soils, and to evacuate these matters from the islands. Circulation of this para-nuclear waste appeared as essential for the atoll future. The dismantling of Hao military base and the deconstruction of over 60 buildings generated 70,000 cubic meters of concrete and 12,000 cubic meters of bituminous materials. Despite being freely given to the local population, the amount of gravels quickly overwhelmed the municipality needs. It forced the local council to search for potential outlets for these bulk products. In 2016, in order to lower the cost of repairing the island's ring road, the mayor of Rikitea Island in the Gambia archipelago, 800 kilometers away from Hao, bought some of these gravels. Despite their small volume, the dischargement of the gravels at Rikitea Harbour on October 2016 triggered the opposition of the local representatives of the association called 193. 193 militates for the recognition of the consequences of the nuclear tests in Polynesia. The association organized demonstrations in Rikitea and in Papeete, the Polynesian capital. It also realized a blockade of the rebels on the harbor for 3 weeks. These events forced the president of French Polynesia, Edouard Fritsch, to organize a televised intervention in November 2016. The 193 Association motivated its opposition by denouncing a so-called radioactive taints contaminating the gravels. The French Radio Protection and Nuclear Safety Institute measured the waste and found no trace of abnormal levels of radioactivity. 193 rejected these results, considering that the institute was neo-colonialist and translated French lies on the test's consequences. Following new measures conducted by an independent laboratory, 193 recognized the harmlessness of the gravels. However, it maintained its opposition to their circulation out of Hao, invoking the symbolic charge that these materials were carrying. The gravels were ultimately sold by Rikitea municipality to private entrepreneurs on the island, and all further shipments were abandoned, thus leading to the continuation of the containment in Hao. This controversy reflects 193's place as the most virulent actors among the association fighting for the recognition of the nuclear test consequence. It is also a byproduct of the particular political context at that time. On the one hand, while 193 political stance is historically close to the left-wing independence movement, Edouard Fritsch party is situated on the autonomist right wing. On the other hand, at that time, Morurora and Fangataufa, the leading association of the struggle for the recognition of the nuclear test victim in Polynesia, was losing its momentum. 193 then saw a strategic opportunity in politicizing the gravel question. The development of the Chinese fish farm project in Hao led to the depollution of around 185 hectares of land in the atoll. Situated close to the airfields, these lands were hosting industrial warehouses, technical facilities, power plants, and fuel tanks, leaking chemical products for almost half a century. Around 136,000 cubic meters of polluted soils were extracted. Half of them, containing hydrocarbons and PCBs, were sorted and isolated. However, more than 75,000 cubic meters of soils contaminated with heavy metals are still waiting for a management solution in Hao. This waste containment on the atoll is suspended on political negotiations between national, regional, and local authorities. On one side, the French state requests them to be stored on the island, a solution refused by the municipality and the Polynesian government, seeing it as a danger for Hao's economic future. On the other side, local authorities favor the exportation of these wastes out of the island. Facing the high cost of shipping the soil to countries capable of treating them, the municipality is asking for the waste to be transferred to the nuclear testing ground of Morurora. Even if no traces of artificial radioactivity could be found in the soils, these matters were still seen as byproducts of the tests. This solution had been rejected by the army, which considered that the atoll of Mulhouse is free of pollution. Neither the graduals nor the soil stored in Haute present any traces of artificial radioactivity coming from the tests that were conducted in Polynesia. However, both of these materials are still confined in the island and prevented from circulating because they are still perceived as nuclear and defined as such by actors. The nuclearity of these wastes is not defined by their actual radioactivity or even by potential past contamination. They are nuclear because they keep the mark of the particular history of the place where they were produced. Their social categorization as nuclear and the containment practices it imposes are contingent. Their nuclearity are the product of a particular set of actions and system of actors which could recombine themselves through time, thus potentially allowing their future circulation. House waste are nuclear but not radioactive, and so are their current containment in space. Thank you for listening, and see you